So I noticed a huge shift in energies today, and maybe this is because my family is having guests over, and they are um, family ties that we haven't connected with in a long while, and people who I think, very excited to see. Now, that kind of gets me into what I'm going to talk about today, which is the way that I perceive feelings. And I am not sure that I have ever experienced happiness or ever experienced sadness or I feel like I've experienced anger. Um, but there's a philosopher or thinker who described how he feels isolated from society because he does not he believes that he thinks his way into feeling. He approaches reality with this analytical perspective, and whereas a lot of people think with their feelings, he feels through thought, but perceives that most people think as a response to their feelings. And I really resonated with that. But I'm not sure. That's the thing. I do not know. I'm constantly analyzing, am I excited? Am I really excited? And then I'm taking cues from my body, like what is the way that I am showing up? I mean, my voice is higher right now, or like I am speaking faster, I am expressing more energy, but I could just as easily choose to be calm. I could switch it at a drop of a dime. And this tonal change, I think, creates a ton of whiplash. I'm aware of like an audience, and I'm aware of the switch up of energies that, like, when I am watching something and there's a cut in the editing that just shocks you, it like disrupts the story, the flow. And so I want to be flowing, but what happens when there is a sudden change? Like when, it's clear outside and then all of a sudden it starts snowing, like today. That is just as natural as an even transition from one to the other. I think this drama, this tension between, like two, I mean, not quite opposites. I want to be choicey with my language. Tension between two extremes. It creates the ebb and flow between those creates just as much of a natural process as, ebbing and flowing this much. And I feel like, and see, I'm saying I feel, but is it feeling really? It's more that I think, and I'm just choosing the word feel, and I think that creates a little bit of disconnection. What's that word? When you are acting in a way that is not synchronous with your internal experiences, there's a word for that. But it creates, I think, dysregulation and tension. And anyways, yeah, I love learning so much. I love thinking so much. And this process, I think, is enriching. But the more that I read, the more ideas that I consume from other people, and the more that I write, it is this very natural process of applying like certain words will stick, certain concepts will stick, and there's nothing that I have to do to force that to happen except for continue doing the things that I love: learning, asking questions, writing. And it can be very frustrating to try to control that and be like, it should be moving faster, it should be moving slower, I should understand this concept. But there's no control. Those are all just thoughts. There's no controlling them. But what I can control is my action. I can write, and I love writing. I can read. I'm currently reading Synchronicities by Carl Jung. I just finished Tell Me How You Eat by Hamza Hussein, and I'm also reading Medically Unexplained Symptoms by Robert W. Bellow. And I don't say this to be like, oh, I'm so impressive, because I think the idea that we read to impress people comes from a place of disconnect from the understanding that the reason that reading and expanding your worldview is impressive, would be impressive, is because it showcases a broader understanding that an individual may have. And I seek to pursue an expansive understanding of the world, and to, from that, interpret my life in a really beautiful way, create my own, to put it in psychological terms, fantasy framework, if you will. I've been watching so many of Julian, what is his name's videos. I linked him in the description of my last YouTube video, so you might hear me using a lot of the same references that he did. Please just check out his channel, because he is, I would say, much further on his, maybe not much further on his journey than I am on mine, but much further in this pursuit of philosophical ideas, and I really admire that. YouTube. Julian. Oh. Whoop. Here we go. Julian de Medeiros. That is his name. And if we are so inclined, we might ask, why did you choose to take the time to share that name? And my answer would be, because I think it's important that we give respect to the people who sourced the ideas that we have. Okay, let me backtrack. No idea is original. But the ideas that we have are formed through our experiences, and we can have tangible sources of those experiences, which, it's like you are what you eat, but you are what you eat through the content that you consume. And so if you are aware of the content that you are consuming, the voices that you are consuming, you can give respect to it. Same with food. If you are aware of the effort that was put into the rice in front of you, the lettuce, whatever it is, you can have a greater sense of gratitude for it, and it really makes me feel grounded and connected with my humanity and myself, and the larger collective that I am a part of. So with that, yeah, just check out his channel. He is great. I also wanted to talk about Saturn, because I've been writing about Saturn. And Saturn is the god of time, right? In Roman mythology. And also the god of agriculture and the golden age of humanity. I was writing a lot about Saturn and how you can work with Saturn in your creative practices. And, one of the first things that might come to mind is, well, set a time limit. Set a time limit, allow yourself to just, take what you can control, your action. And between this time and this time is when you are going to create. That is what I have done here. Between 3 and 3:15, I am going to record, not judging what comes out, not judging anything. It's just observation. And, well, this gets you started. It gets the ball rolling. Having these boundaries that Saturn wants to create gets the ball rolling. But thinking of Saturn more broadly as the god of time, it's having these clear-cut boundaries is also kind of missing the point. It's a starting point, but you can go a little bit deeper, and it's really arbitrary. It's really arbitrary. These arbitrary boundaries are necessary to create a semblance so that we can navigate our way through reality, but you can't control when the snow is going to fall. You can't control when family is going to come. You can't control aspects of money, your financial circumstances. There's all of these wins and losses, and I think about the old, is it Taoist? I don't know, tale, it's a Buddhist story of luck, and this farmer that doesn't, gotta formulate my thoughts. He loses a sheep, and his neighbor's like, oh, that is such bad luck. And he's like, good luck, bad luck. And then, he gains 10 more sheep, and the farmer's neighbor goes, oh my gosh, you have such great luck. And the other farmer goes, good luck, bad luck. And the gist of the story is that life is constantly changing. And there is this innate wisdom within Saturn that an awareness that life is constantly changing. Things come, things go. There's a beginning, there's an end. And between that, the time between is all that we have. The time between a start and an end is all that we have. That present. But you don't know the bounds. You don't know the beginning. You don't know the end. They are not concrete. Anything that is concrete is simply a construct. And Saturn in Roman mythology tried to create these constructs. And maybe this is more applicable to Greek mythology. I should really refresh, because I believe Romans kind of softened Saturn so that he would have a more, he'd be the god of the golden age of humanity and be less bloodthirsty. But I know that Kronos, the Greek version, ended up suffering the same fate as his father, which was to be overtaken by time, despite being given the illusion of freedom from his mother Gaia, Mother Earth. So Saturn, god of time, after overtaking his father Uranus, heaven, was placed in charge of humanity by Gaia, Earth. And in this rule, he, I want to say usurped, is that the word? But he had to take on the responsibility of, reality was created by the blending of heaven and earth. So to control reality, to control humanity, you must, once that severance has happened, you must bring about a time of, you must yourself embody heaven and earth. And so there's this intense idealism within Saturn, and this intense desire to control, to set bounds. And still, at the end, Gaia, Earth, told Saturn, not at the end, but Gaia gave a prophecy to Saturn, which, and now I'm mixing up, to Kronos, saying that he would suffer the same fate as his father. And out of fear, Kronos, ended up consuming his children because he didn't want them to overtake him. But that is the same thing that Uranus did. Uranus didn't consume his children, but forced Gaia, his partner, to keep them within her womb. He hid them away from the world within his partner. And so now the child of that, who is heaven and earth, is hiding them within himself. And that is the very thing that he rebelled against in the first place. So even though he was given this illusion of freedom, you can have whatever it is that you want, and he tried to, and he was also given the prophecy that you are gonna suffer the same fate as your father, and eventually Zeus or Jupiter overtook him. He did. He suffered the same fate as his father. He only had so much freedom. It's just a really interesting tale of generational patterns and how stories don't exactly change over time. No idea is original. When somebody speaks something into existence, it has been retold a million billion times before, but it just manifests differently. And yes, this is a very gruesome version of that. You know, it's not exactly hopeful. It's like, yeah, you're gonna suffer the same fate as your father, and he does, but there is hope in that pattern. What do I mean by that? Well, if nothing is in our control, then we can just enjoy the moment. It's a very simple concept, and it sounds so silly to say, and you have heard it a million billion times before, just like every single story has been repeated a million billion times before. But I bet that so many movies that you consume can be boiled down to just enjoy the moment. So many ideas that we consume can be boiled down to these very simple, basic, cliche things, but what makes them interesting is the way that they are shifted over time. Although Saturn suffered the same fate as his father, he is not his father. He has his own story. You have your own story. And the end of that, now, using Saturn as a deity or a symbol that we can work with creatively, we might be able to say, I do not know when my journey will end. But Saturn does. That's for Saturn to control, and that's okay. Now, if you're talking about a creative project, I do not know what the entirety of the vision will be. I do not know how it will come into fruition, but Saturn does. And in this in-between time, I just know that there is an end. I don't know how or when it will happen exactly. I can set these arbitrary deadlines and try to hold myself accountable, but at the end of the day, all I can control is showing up every single day. And sometimes there are things that happen that affect your ability to even control that. Showing up every single day will look different depending on other circumstances outside of your control, other beginnings and ends, the beginning of an illness, or the end of an illness, or the beginning of a new job offer, or the end of a home. So, yeah. This video is kind of all over the place, as these are, but again, the intention here was for me to set an arbitrary time and show up every day. And I'm doing that. I don't know what the end is going to look like, but I know that I am actively expressing what's going on in my mind I that's my intention, at the very least. There is very little that I know. But I am acting. I am thinking and questioning. And growing my curiosity every single day. And that feels important. So keep asking questions. There's no stupid question. Keep reading, keep writing, keep loving, keep engaging with the people that you love. All of the basic things. I know you know. But yeah. It's gonna be okay, girl. Love you. Bye.